Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about We Are Monsters by Brian Kirk. This is from Sam Hain Publishing. There it is. And I believe it comes out July 7th. So in just a day or two as of this recording. So in We Are Monsters, the story takes place mainly at Sugar Hill Mental Hospital, where there's sort of a battle going on between old school psychotherapy and new school treatments for mental patients. And you have Dr. Eli Alpert, who's the head of the hospital, and he believes in therapy for helping patients, helping them deal with their issues, breaking through, getting them well by talk therapy and that sort of thing. Whereas his protege, Dr. Alex Drexler, is all about the new school and pharmaceuticals and basically drugging the patients. And Alex is working on a new drug that he's hoping will essentially cure schizophrenia and most likely some other mental ailments. And when Crosby Nelson, also known as the Apocalypse Killer, is brought to the hospital, Drexler sees an opportunity to prove that this drug he's working on is a miracle cure kind of thing, but it has some very unintended side effects, and literally everybody's own personal hells break loose inside the hospital. So there's your nutshell for We Are Monsters by Brian Kirk. And I like this cover. It's very simple, but I like the coloring, very bright and very stark image there. And I really enjoyed this book. I was a psych major when I was in school, so mental health is something that I find very interesting, especially the psychotic type of mental problems. And this really, as I said, it delves into old school versus new school, which is an interesting debate. Dr. Alpert, the older gentleman who runs the hospital, really believes that you have to work with these patients, you have to talk to the patients, you have to find the things that are going to help them get better. There's one patient in particular who is a musician, and Dr. Alpert will sneak a guitar to the patient, and it's very clear that when this patient starts playing the guitar and starts singing, that his head clears up. He joins us back in reality when he's playing the guitar. So it seems as if perhaps Dr. Alpert's methods are the way to go, but on the other hand, you have Dr. Drexler, who thinks drugs are the answer, and a case could be made for his point of view. This experimental drug that he's working on also seems to work wonders. So there's that debate. And there's also, it really gets into the nature of reality. Of course, you know, who's crazy, really? The people that we label as crazy, or everybody else? Are we, the normal people of society, just going through life with blinders on? Can these mental patients see something that we don't, that really is there are they hallucinating? Are they really crazy? Or has their mind simply been opened up to something beyond what we can see? And the book reminded me, as usual, everything seems to remind me of something else, but two things in particular, and that's a couple of H.P. Lovecraft stories, or in this particular case, more accurately, the movies based on those H.P. Lovecraft stories. And right off the bat, I was reminded of Reanimator, because you have Alex Drexler. The very first scene we have is him administering his drug, his experimental drug, to a patient. And he's doing this in secret. He's trying to circumvent the system to get this to get this drug to work. And it reminded me of that opening scene of the movie Reanimator that starts with Herbert West administering his serum to somebody. And just like in that scene from Reanimator, when Drexler administers his new drug, at first it seems to work, but then things go awry. So that, just that aspect of the working in secret, perhaps doing things he shouldn't be doing to try to further his goals, reminded me of Reanimator, and again, the movie, more so than necessarily the actual source material, the H.P. Lovecraft story. The other thing was From Beyond, I was reminded of, simply because, well, actually two reasons. One, the pineal gland plays a big part in both this story and From Beyond, and because of the whole perceptions of reality thing. In From Beyond, the whole idea was seeing the layers of the universe, I suppose, and in From Beyond, it's not a medicine, it's a machine that stimulates the pineal gland and allows us to see those things that are around us all the time, simply on a different plane, but it allows us to see that. In here, the drug is administered to the pineal gland, and again, there's that whole question of are normal people perceiving everything there is to perceive, or are there layers of reality that only some people are privy to? So, again, just some things that came to my mind as I was reading it, these two particular stories. And I really, obviously, I think, enjoyed this. A lot of great characters. I haven't yet mentioned Angela, the social worker, who's really, she really wants to help people. She's really good at her job, but she's also self-destructive. Everybody in the story has some deep-seated issues. Again, who are the crazy people? Who are the normal people? It's all how you look at things. So Angela, and we'll find out eventually what everybody's issues are, but Angela definitely has a self-destructive streak that was actually rather surprising to me, but it adds depth to her character, and we learn why she behaves the way she does. But she is a very caring person. She cares more for everybody else than she does for herself, apparently. But a really, really great character. Dr. Alpert has a lot of baggage. And again, the old school, he really just wants to help everybody else. He's got his reasons for that, and I think they're more noble than Dr. Drexler's reasons. Drexler is not a total bad guy, but he seems rather shallow. He has gone into what essentially is a noble profession, but his reasons are rather selfish. the whole reason he went into the mental health field is because his brother Jerry is a schizophrenic, I believe, is his diagnosis. And he loves his brother. He wants to help his brother, but possibly even more than that, he wants to win the approval of his father. Because Jerry was the golden boy. Very obvious that the elder Drexler loved Jerry more than Alex. And so, yes, Drexler's trying to help people, but it comes from this selfish base. You know, he wants to help his brother, but again, it all comes down to winning his father's approval. If he can fix his brother, maybe his father will approve. If he can revolutionize the mental health industry, maybe his father will finally praise him. And he's in it for the money. He does have, at least at the beginning, he's got a pharmacy backing his research. So very complex characters. And then so there's all this going on, and we meet a few of the mental patients. As I said, I think the one guy's name is Russell, the musician. And then, of course, the headliner, Crosby Nelson, the apocalypse killer, who comes to the hospital. And again, Dr. Alpert has his way of dealing with him, and a lot of people do not approve of his methods. And the head of the board of the mental hospital, of course, it's all political for him, and he thinks that Drexler should be the new head of the hospital. They're trying to push Dr. Alpert out, and they push Drexler to use this new drug on Crosby, and that's when things get crazy. Pardon the term. Because Drexler, he thinks everything's falling apart. There's a lot of pressure on him. And then he decides to test the drug on his own brother. And again, it seems to work. It's this miracle cure, but then some weird stuff starts happening. And Drexler's wife sees a dog. Her dog is kind of attacked by her dog, except her dog is dead. And someone attacks Jerry, and Drexler's wife is a witness to this and says, hey, this is who it was, except that Drexler himself bumped into this person in the hospital. It's an orderly. So something's going on with Jerry. Drexler's wife calls him. She's freaking out. There's somebody here. Drexler's running out of the hospital to get home to help his wife and his brother, and he bumps into this orderly. And yet his wife says that orderly is the person that attacked Jerry. So it's like, what the hell is going on? How can this person be in two places at once? And then when Drexler ends up using the drug on Crosby, the apocalypse killer, again, seems to work. It's a miracle. Drexler is himself again. And then the very wild and crazy side effect kicks in, and that's when the book really goes, well, again, crazy. And that's towards the end of the book, probably the last third. And again, I just really, really like this story. I like the issues that it discusses. Again, mental health. If I had to say, my guess would be the author supports the old school method. Since it's the pharmaceutical drug that causes the chaos that we end up having going on, it would seem that the message of the book is drugs bad, therapy good, which may or may not be the case. And of course it is a work of fiction, and authors often write things that they don't necessarily agree with, but sometimes they're trying to make a point. I don't know. That just seems to be the slant that the story takes. Therapy good, drugs bad. I think there's a place for both. On the one hand, I do think a lot of drugs are prescribed unnecessarily. A lot of doctors rely too much on just doping up their patients. I do think there is a place for talk therapy and other things, art therapy and music therapy and all of that. I think they can be very helpful, and sometimes can be all that's needed. But I do also think, on the other hand, that when you have chemical imbalances in the brain, sometimes talk or music or art isn't going to do anything about those imbalances, and you do need something else. Again, I really think drugs are overused, but I do think there is a place for them. But these are the issues that are brought up in the story, and they're handled very well. I don't know the author's background, Mr. Kirk, as opposed to Captain Kirk, who is someone else completely. But Mr. Kirk seems to, I don't know how much research he did. Everything seems relatively authentic as far as how the mental patients are handled, and it really does get into the heads of some of these patients, which I like. We sort of a bit get to see the world through their eyes, and as I said, even Dr. Alpert and Dr. Drexler and Angela all have their issues. Maybe the point of the story is we're all damaged in some way. I don't know, because everybody in the story is damaged. I'm sure everybody has their baggage and their secrets and their things that affect how they perceive the world. I know I certainly do. But it really, really gets into these things. But in no way is it boring. It moves along at a great pace. And the characters are very compelling. The story itself is very compelling. It's actually, the last third is probably my least favorite part. Not that it's bad. It's still good. I just like the other stuff better. That last third, when everything goes nuts, is still interesting. And it really... we're almost... I hate to use the word literally again, but we're almost literally in the minds, maybe the subconscious of each of the characters, or more accurately, the subconscious has manifested. So we really get to see what's going on inside their heads, and it is interesting, and it does answer a lot of questions, and it does move the story forward. And there is some really, really cool stuff that happens in this part. This is when it gets really creepy and freaky and scary. And it's not a bad part of the story. It's a really good part of the story. I just happen to like the first 2/3 simply because of the themes and the characters. So take that as you will. I'm going to get to the rating here, and I give We Are Monsters by Brian Kirk from Samhain Publishing gets 4 out of 5 experimental drugs. You can't really see there's drips of the experimental drug, but you can't really see it that well, unfortunately. But 4 out of 5, experimental drugs injected into the pineal gland. A very interesting story, a very interesting look at the human condition, at reality, how we perceive things. I don't know if this is his first novel, but he's definitely an author I'm going to keep an eye on, because it is a well-written story and a very compelling story. It's really interesting. So 4 out of 5. Highly recommend it. Little glare there. There you go. So, there you have it. My take on We Are Monsters by Brian Kirk. I will have links for the book in the description below. One for Amazon, one for Sam Hain, so you can just click and buy and read. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. If the comments are open for spoilers, just post a spoiler warning. If you get into spoiler territory and have not given us a warning, I'll just delete your comment. Most people have been good about that. I've only had one real problem as far as that goes. So, I want to talk about these things, and I'm happy to talk about any aspect of it. Just be polite for the people that haven't read the book yet. We don't want to give too much away. Please like, share, and subscribe. And that's it, I guess, for this episode of the Low Budget Review Show. So until next time, read more books.